On this primetime news, at long last, Korea's main rival parties are seeing eye to eye on the $10 billion budget supplement. Tomorrow, the last day of July's extraordinary session, is when they'll hash out the details. And Korea's economy slows down in the second quarter, posting 0% range growth for 5 straight quarters. The MERS outbreak and the prolonged drought are to be blamed for that trend. A South Korean civic group visits North Korea to discuss a joint event for Liberation Day, which falls on August 15th. No substantial agreements were reached, but the talks will continue. For these stories and more, do stay with us. Hello, welcome to Primetime News on this Thursday, July 23rd. I'm Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Thank you for joining us.
Well, after days of strenuous negotiations, Korea's rival parties have finally agreed to pass the extra budget bill tomorrow.
The two parties also decided to open a briefing session at the parliamentary committee level to resolve allegations surrounding the nation's spy agency. Our Kim Young-gil starts us off.
Rival party negotiators reached a striking deal on Thursday to pass the nearly $10 billion extra budget, which is a reduced version from the original budget proposed by the government.
This supplementary budget will help cover the damage from the MERS outbreak and the drought, as well as revive the faltering economy. We cannot be split over livelihood bills.
The proposed supplement is expected to help Korea maintain its economic growth at the 3% level, create some 124,000 new jobs, and make up for a tax revenue shortfall. The ruling party also decided to accept the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy's demands to consider raising corporate taxes to reduce a fiscal deficit. In regards to the National Intelligence Service hacking scandal, the two parties agreed to be briefed by the NIS at the National Assembly's Intelligence Committee in the second week of August, hoping that the hearings could ease the public's concerns on the matter.
The alleged illegal hacking and surveillance by the NIS has caused anxiety among the public. This anxiety should be resolved for the sake of national security.
The NIS hacking scandal intensified after an employee committed suicide last week, leaving behind a note saying that the spy agency did not wiretap citizens and meddled in elections. However, this did not stop the NPAD from pressing charges at the prosecutor's office against the former NIS chief, as well as the company that facilitated the purchasing of the hacking program back in 2012. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Hopes to convene a joint event for Liberation Day next month by the two Koreas have yet to become realized as civic groups from the two sides failed to reach an agreement on Thursday. But the talks will continue next week with both sides pondering on holding a once-in-a-decade event. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Civic groups from the two Koreas failed to reach an agreement in its meeting held on Thursday to jointly hold a Liberation Day celebration next month. The two sides, however, agreed to meet again in North Korea's joint inter-Korean industrial complex of Kaesong next Friday. During the talks, the North Korean side officially asked its southern counterpart to participate in its 3-day national unification event starting August 13 to mark the 70th anniversary of the Korean Peninsula's liberation from Japan. To this, the South Korean civic group responded that it'll make a decision on the matter pending further discussion with its government. Meanwhile, the South Korean group invited the North to participate in various civic events held in the country and to simultaneously convene a Liberation Day celebration in Seoul and Pyongyang, in which the North said it'll discuss and deliberate on the offer. The South Korean government has said earlier that it'll support a joint Liberation Day celebration with North Korea. A high-level government official said Seoul is trying to improve inter-Korean ties through civilian exchanges, which is also the reason why it approved the South Korean group's request to visit the North. If the two sides agree to co-host an event, it'll be the first time in 10 years that the two Koreas celebrate Liberation Day together. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
North Korean Workers' Party Secretary Kim Ki-nam, the man in charge of the party's propaganda department, has reappeared in Pyongyang's media reports after disappearing in April. The North Korean Central News Agency reported Thursday that the 86-year-old escorted Kim Jong-un to a museum to mark atrocities committed by U.S. forces during the Korean War. His absence heightened speculation that Kim Jong-un's younger sister, Kim Yo-jong, had taken over the party's propaganda department because of Kim Ki-nam's failing health or as a punishment for negligence in his work. Kim Ki-nam has worked in the propaganda department since the 1960s and is seen as a key player in legitimizing the hereditary succession of 3 generations of Kims.
In other news, a group of American lawmakers has condemned Japan's attempts to whitewash history and its claims to Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo. They gathered today at the close of a conference in Washington hosted by a Korean-American civic group. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
A group of U.S. lawmakers is urging Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to offer an apology for Japan's use of Korean women as sex slaves before and during World War II. At the opening of the Korean-American Grassroots Conference in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, U.S. Republican Congressman Ed Royce came out strong, saying that he does not want to see Japan whitewash history anymore. He added that the sex slave issue should be part of school textbooks in Japan. Royce also touched upon Japan's claims to Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo, saying that anyone who studies history knows Dokdo is part of Korean territory. Congressman Mike Honda echoed his views, saying that Tokyo needs to offer a sincere apology for the comfort woman issue, and reiterated Royce's statement about including both issues in school textbooks. 13 members of Congress attended the conference, promising to do all they can to urge Japan to issue an apology for its past wrongdoings. The conference, organized by Korean American Civic Empowerment, aims to strengthen Korean Americans' political power. The Korean delegation was led by Saenuri Party lawmaker Na Kyung-won, along with a handful of other lawmakers. More than 200,000 women, mostly Koreans, are believed to have been forced into sex slavery by the Japanese military before and during World War II. Experts say time is of the essence, as there are only 48 surviving Korean comfort women who are still alive. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Donald Trump, the flamboyant American billionaire reality TV star and Republican presidential hopeful, makes another senseless comment. He criticized South Korea for relying on the U.S. for defense when it has plenty of money of its own, prompting the need to hire someone to help him get his facts straight about this particular matter. Our Son Jung-in tells us more.
During a campaign speech in South Carolina this week, Donald Trump said Saudi Arabia makes $1 billion a day and yet receives protection from the U.S. military without giving anything back in return. He then mentioned South Korea, only to be cut off by a member of the audience who apparently shouted the word crazy.
South Korea, crazy is right, right? Who said that? Stand up. Stand up. He said it's crazy. It's true. It's true. It's crazy. They make $1 billion a day.
Trump is believed to have insinuated that South Korea was enjoying a free security ride on U.S. taxpayers' money when it is making a lot of money on its own. However, Trump's remarks clearly show he's oblivious to the fact that the South Korean government has long shared the cost of stationing U.S. forces here. Also, it's a widely held view that the American military presence on the Korean peninsula is in line with U.S. national interests, raising questions over his insight and legitimacy on foreign policy. Trump's popularity has surged among Republicans following a series of blunt comments over recent days. Political watchers say Trump's remarks about South Korea and his verbal attacks on undocumented Mexican immigrants are mostly a strategy to draw more attention to his campaign. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
The Korean economy has slowed more than expected in the April to June period. The central bank attributes the snail-pace growth to the recent MERS outbreak and the drought. But in the face of slowing exports, concerns grow that a low growth now might be a trend in Korea. Shin Se-min has the details.
The Korean economy grew 0.3% in the second quarter, a sharp slowdown from the 0.8% gain in the first 3 months of this year. It also marks an extension of the 0% range growth posted for 5 straight quarters. The Bank of Korea said Thursday that the MERS-hit economy saw a small increase in consumption by domestic residents, while a nationwide drought battered the agricultural sectors.
Although the agricultural and fisheries sectors are a small portion of the total GDP calculation, a drop of over 11% across both sectors did have an impact on second quarter growth.
Experts say at this pace, Korea may not be able to hit the BOK's growth forecast of 2.8%, recently shaved down from 3.1%.
There needs to be another economic threshold as exports, which used to be a driving factor for the economy, are eating at the already slow-growing economy.
From a year earlier, the Korean economy expanded 2.2%, growing at its slowest pace in more than 2 years. While the central bank was optimistic that the economy would pick up in the second half as the effects of the MERS outbreak and the drought have receded, it stayed mum on the possibility of another growth rate cut in the latter half of the year, saying that the second quarter growth figure is slightly lower than expected. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Staying on the economic front, Korea's largest car maker Hyundai Motor has unveiled a disappointing report card for the second quarter. The auto giant's operating profit slipped more than 16% from the previous year to roughly $1.5 billion, while sales rose just 0.3% to slightly under $20 billion. The fall in earnings comes on the back of stronger competition at home and abroad, as well as the appreciation of the Korean won against other currencies like the Japanese yen. Now, Chile is the country Korea first signed a free trade deal with 11 years ago. With an extensive list of products being traded, representatives from both countries met in Santiago to discuss ways to bring their partnership to the next level. Our Kwon So-ah gives us a recap on the trade pact.
The deal was sealed back in April 2004. Now, a decade later, Korea and Chile's bilateral trade volume has reached almost $7 billion, a jump by more than 4 times. Compared to the more than 40 times larger trade volume between Korea and China, the FTA with the South American country might not sound substantial. But considering the agreement with Chile was a first for Korea, the deal was an icebreaker for the country's trade policy in terms of market liberalization.
It actually worked as a trigger for very dramatic subsequent FTA policy for the Korean governments toward the United States, European Union, the ASEAN, and even China later.
Today, Chileans are enjoying a wide range of Korean goods, including chemical products, electronic appliances, and especially automobiles. Korean cars occupy the largest market share in Chile, one of the advantages of having reached out to the Chilean market earlier than other countries. Korea imports raw materials such as copper, agricultural products like grapes, and many more.
This Chilean wine is just one of many that have found a place on Korean supermarket shelves. There's no doubt the variety has expanded, but consumers are still scratching their heads about one thing: the price.
And that is despite tax eliminations on nearly all trading items. Experts say the culprit lies on Korea's distribution channels, which is why measures should be implemented for consumers to benefit the most from this FTA. And to further enhance advantages on both sides of the deal, Korea and Chile's trade officials have met this week in Santiago to upgrade their partnership, taking into account the multiple FTAs that each country has garnered over the years. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Korean men are working until well after their official retirement age of 60, a worrisome trend as it indicates many of them may still be in the rat race when they should be in their golden years. Our Connie Kim brings us this story.
Korea is known for having some of the longest working hours in the developed world, but now it looks like Korean men retire at the highest age too.
A report by the Korea Labor Institute on Thursday shows that the average Korean man works until he's almost 72 years old, more than 6 years than the OECD average. Japanese men were second on the list at nearly 70, followed by Switzerland, Sweden, and the US. Considering that Korea's official retirement age is 60, men are working more than a decade longer than they're supposed to. What's concerning is the employment rate for middle-aged men between the ages of 55 and 64 was close to 80% in 2014. Now that's the second highest in the OECD and second only to Japan, which is at more than 81%. The institute says the high figures show that most Korean men are not prepared for retirement and must continue to work to support their family. To ease a problem, the institute calls for a balanced employment model. Currently, Korean men between the ages of 27 and 54 work the most. The report suggests distributing work hours to 40 hours a week for men between 27 and 54, 30 hours for men between 55 and 60, and less than 20 hours a week for men older than 65. Other experts suggest strengthening the social safety net to give the elderly a better employment and welfare system. The issue is pressing for Korea as a proportion of people ages 65 and over is expected to be more than 40% in 2040. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Today is what we call Jungbok here in Korea, known to be the midpoint of the hottest part of the summer. On this day, Koreans traditionally have samgyetang or chicken ginseng soup to get that extra oomph you need to battle the heat. Apparently, there are many other food items that can give you the boost when the mercury rises. Our Handan lists us some of them.
This is the traditional Korean dish samgyetang, stuffed with rice, ginseng, garlic, and other herbs. The chicken ginseng soup, with its unique fresh taste, is the must-have meal for Koreans during the scorching summer heat.
The various oriental herbs in samgyetang help warm up the body by boosting blood circulation.
The chicken soup is good, especially for people who suffer from cold hands and feet. But if your body holds on to heat well, samgyetang may not be the best way to recharge your energy during the summer. If you're one of those people, you might want to try eel soup or broiled duck, which help cool the body down. Seafood can also help you stay healthy during the hot weather. Octopus is especially good for people who get tired easily, as its taurine acid helps strengthen liver functions. For the elderly or children, high-protein and low-fat abalone or croaker are recommended to boost the immune system.
Seafood has the unique function of counterbalancing. During the summer, it helps your body maintain the necessary balance.
If you have a weak metabolism or your body swells up easily, doctors suggest avoiding the kinds of food Koreans enjoy to beat the heat. They say for those people, fruit and vegetables that hydrate you and provide a good supply of vitamins are the perfect summer health food. Handan, Arirang News.
And for the top international headlines today, we now turn to our Lee Sun-ho at the News Center.
Our focus, the Greek parliament passes a second set of reforms. Researchers discover the world's oldest Quran, and 3 astronauts have arrived safely at the International Space Station.
Sun-ho, let's start with Greece.
Well, Greece garnered sufficient votes in parliament to pass a crucial second package of reforms in exchange for more bailout deal talks. The measures include reforming Greece's banking and judiciary systems. The bill passed with almost a landslide, with the majority of lawmakers in parliament, along with the support of pro-Euro opposition parties.
In total, 298 lawmakers voted, with 230 voting yes, 63 voting no, and 5 abstained. Therefore, the bill is passed by majority.
Now, there was a point in time when Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras had some of his own Syriza party members revolting against him, but this time around, he did not have any trouble passing the draft legislation. One such individual of these was former Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis, who previously voted against the first set of reforms while approving the second one. Those who did oppose the second bill, however, weren't that much of a threat, just standing at around 31 members. The reforms were the last preconditions before Greece can start negotiations with international creditors on a third bailout deal of $93 billion. And in archaeology, pieces of what is the oldest Quran to date were found inside the pages of another book at the library of the University of Birmingham. The manuscripts of the Holy Book are thought to be at least 1,371 years old, making this the oldest copy in existence. The university claims that the chapters could have been written by somebody who knew the Prophet Muhammad personally. In fact, radiocarbon dating of the skin parchments shows that the pages are as old as the Prophet himself, dating as far back as around 600 AD. Moreover, the writings also closely resemble the Quran in existence today.
And so this tends to support the view that the Quran that we now have is more or less very close indeed to the Quran as it was brought together.
The pages of the ancient book were kept alongside other Middle Eastern books and documents for nearly a century before finally being discovered. The manuscript will be put on display to the public in October. And moving on to space, NASA revealed 3 new crewmen docking safely with the International Space Station after being delayed for 2 months. The crew on board the Russian Soyuz rocket was comprised of a veteran and 2 rookie astronauts from all different nationalities. The ship made its launch at around 5 p.m. from Kazakhstan and made it to the space station in 6 hours. The astronauts were supposed to take off in May, but were delayed after a failed launching of a similar Soyuz rocket in April. The Progress cargo ship ended up being stranded in a low orbit, unable to reach the station. It later fell back down into Earth's atmosphere, where its supplies burned up. An investigation concluded that the Progress did not separate properly from the Soyuz rocket's third stage engine. The safe arrival of the 3 astronauts puts the space station back to its full 6 members. And that does it for your international news at this hour. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.
It started to rain in the afternoon in the capital area, quite heavy at times, but it seems like it was just the beginning as the rain is expected to intensify overnight and could continue till tomorrow. And upper regions, including the capital, could receive more than 100 millimeters of heavy rainfall, so there's a high possibility that a heavy rain advisory could be issued. And as it mentioned during the newscast, today is Jungbok here in Korea, marking one of the hottest days of the summer, but it was rather quite muggy instead of hot, and tomorrow should be slightly cooler than today, with highs in Seoul and Gwangju reaching up to 27, and Daegu and Busan will see a high of 30 and 28 tomorrow afternoon. And as for the other regions, it seems like Daejeon will top out at 27, and the blistering day is in store for Jeju Island with high getting up to 33. Now the 12th typhoon of the season, Halola, continues its journey to Japan's Ryukyu Islands, and it could possibly have an indirect effect on Jeju Island and the southern coastal regions by Sunday. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for staying with us.
Do join us for more same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.